Hello, and welcome. I'm your night librarian. So glad you're here tonight. I hope you don't mind. I've put on some relaxing music for you. It should begin shortly, softly in the background. Let's take a moment to slow down together. There's nothing you need to do, and nowhere you need to be. Let's light up the candle. Just a small, warm glow, steady and comforting. Take a gentle breath in and let it go. Tonight, we'll be talking about something simple, something calm, something that you can drift in and out of as you rest. You don't need to stay awake. Just listen. Relax, and allow yourself to fall asleep whenever you're ready. This book's title is Whispering Woods, where ancient trees hold secrets older than human memory, and beneath your feet lies a hidden world more connected than you might ever imagine. Tonight, I invite you to slow down, to breathe deeply, and to drift into the gentle mysteries of the forest. Deep beneath the moss, beneath the ferns and the damp earth, there is a conversation happening. It is a silent dialogue, carried along threads of silver fungi. A network older than any city we have ever built. The scientists call it the Mycorrhizal network, but in this library, we call it the heartbeat of the woods. Imagine the oldest tree in the grove. She is the mother tree. Her roots reach deeper than the others, touching the hidden waters of the earth. She isn't just standing there. She is watching. Through the soil, she recognizes her own kin. When a sapling is struggling in the shade, unable to reach the sun, the mother tree sends it sugar. She sends it life. Through those tiny fungal threads, she breathes for the forest. When she senses a drought coming, she warns the others to close their paws, to hold their breath, to wait. You are like that sapling tonight. You don't need to reach for anything. You don't need to struggle. You are connected to something vast and quiet. The forest is breathing, and you can breathe with it, deep and slow. Let the roots take the weight of your day. The mother tree is standing guard. You are safe, and you are home. Forests have always called to something deep within us. Perhaps it's because we began our journey as a species among the trees, finding shelter beneath their branches, nourishment from their fruits, safety in their shadows. Or perhaps it's something more profound, something that speaks to a connection we've only recently begun to understand. The forest is not simply a collection of individual trees standing separately in the soil. It is a community, a network, a living conversation that has been unfolding for hundreds of millions of years. Imagine, if you will, walking into an old-growth forest. Your feet press softly into a carpet of moss and fallen leaves, each step releasing the earthy scent of decomposition and renewal. Above you, the canopy filters the sunlight into a soft, green glow. The air feels different here, cooler, richer, almost thick with the presence of life. You might notice the quiet, not an empty silence, but a full one, pregnant with the small sounds of insects, the distant call of birds, the whisper of wind through countless leaves. But what you cannot see, what remains invisible to your eyes, is perhaps the most remarkable part of the forest. Beneath your feet, threading through the soil like an impossibly vast, delicate web, are the mycorrhizal networks. These are fungal highways, living filaments thinner than a human hair, stretching for miles through the dark earth, connecting tree to tree, plant to plant, creating what scientists have come to call the Wood Wide Web. The discovery of mycorrhizal networks has transformed our understanding of forests. For so long, we imagined trees as isolated competitors, each one fighting for its own survival, hoarding sunlight, water, and nutrients. The forest seemed a battleground where only the strongest survived. But the truth is far more beautiful and far more strange. Trees, it turns out, are in constant communication through the mycorrhizal fungi that wrap around and penetrate their roots. They share resources, send warning signals, and even nurture their young. A tree is never truly alone. It is part of a collective, a community that shares not just space, but sustenance and information. The fungi themselves are ancient beyond reckoning. They appeared on Earth long before the first trees, more than 1 billion years ago, when plants first ventured from the water onto land. Some 450 million years ago, they formed partnerships with these fungi. The relationship was one of mutual benefit. The fungi, which cannot photosynthesize, received sugars from the plants. In return, they offered something equally precious, access to water and nutrients from the soil, their delicate filaments extending the reach of plant roots 1,000-fold. This partnership, this mycorrhizal symbiosis, made the greening of Earth possible. Without it, plants might never have successfully colonized the land, and the world as we know it, with its forests and grasslands and gardens, would not exist. Let yourself imagine those ancient shores where the first pioneering plants clung to bare rock, their roots intertwined with fungal threads, together creating the first soil, the first forest, the foundation of all terrestrial life to come. In today's forests, that ancient partnership continues. A single mycorrhizal fungus can connect dozens of trees, even trees of different species. These networks are neither simple nor small. In one handful of forest soil, there may be more fungal filaments than there are humans on Earth. A single fungus can extend for miles, its threads exploring every crevice, every grain of soil, searching for nutrients and water. Through these networks, nutrients flow. A tree growing in a sunny clearing might send excess carbon to a neighbor shaded by the canopy. A tree growing on dry ground might receive water from one with roots near a stream. The forest shares its wealth, but the networks carry more than nutrients. They carry information. When a tree is attacked by insects, it can release chemical signals into the mycorrhizal network. Neighboring trees receive these signals and, in response, begin producing defensive compounds before the insects even arrive. The forest, in essence, warns itself of danger. Scientists have measured these exchanges, traced the flow of nutrients and signals through the fungal threads. They have found that the networks are not random but structured, with certain trees acting as hubs, connected to many others. These hub trees, often the largest and oldest in the forest, play a crucial role in maintaining the health of the entire community. Dr. Suzanne Samar, a forest ecologist, calls these hub trees mother trees. Her research in the forests of British Columbia revealed that these ancient matriarchs are not just passive members of the forest. They actively nurture younger trees, particularly their own offspring. Through the mycorrhizal networks, mother trees send carbon and nutrients to saplings growing in the understory, helping them survive in the deep shade where photosynthesis is difficult. They support their young, increase their survival rates, and pass on, through the network, a kind of chemical wisdom. When a mother tree is dying, something even more remarkable happens. She will often send a final surge of resources through the network to the younger trees around her, giving them one last gift before she falls. It's as if the forest has memory, as if the oldest trees, having weathered centuries of seasons, of fires and droughts and storms, share what they have learned with the next generation. Rest here for a moment with that image. The ancient tree, her roots deep in the earth, connected to countless others, feeding her young, sharing her strength, her resilience, her life itself. The forest is not a place of isolated individuals. It is a family, a community bound together by invisible threads of connection and care. These networks also connect different species of trees. Douglas firs share resources with birches. In summer, when the Douglas firs are growing rapidly and the birches are shaded, the firs send carbon to the birches. In autumn, when the birches are still photosynthesizing but the firs have slowed, the birches return the favor. The forest operates on principles of reciprocity, of give and take, of mutual support. This challenges so much of what we thought we knew about nature. Competition exists, certainly, but so does cooperation, generosity, interdependence. The forest is not red in tooth and claw, but green with connection. As you lie here, breathing slowly, imagine your own body as a kind of forest. Your cells, like trees, do not exist in isolation. They communicate, share resources, support one another. You, too, are a community, a vast ecosystem of countless living parts working together. Perhaps the forest's wisdom applies not just to trees but to all living things. Perhaps we, too, thrive best when we are connected, when we give and receive, when we recognize that our individual health is inseparable from the health of the whole. The mycorrhizal networks have one more gift to share with us tonight. They remind us that what we cannot see is as important as what we can. The most vital connections, the relationships that sustain life itself, often hidden beneath the surface. The forest teaches us to look deeper, to recognize that life is far more interconnected, far more collaborative, far more generous than we might imagine when we look only at the surface of things. So as you continue to rest, to breathe, to let your mind wander through these ancient woods, know that you are part of a world far more connected than it appears. Every breath you take connects you to the trees, which gave you oxygen. Every molecule in your body was once part of the earth, the water, the air, cycling through the great mycorrhizal network of life itself. The forest is speaking, always speaking, in its secret chemical language. And now, you understand a little more of what it has to say. You are welcome here. You are connected. You are home. As we continue our journey deeper into the forest, let us turn our attention to the trees themselves, those patient giants who have mastered the art of standing still while the world rushes past them. There is something profoundly calming about trees. Perhaps it's their stillness, their rootedness. In a world that demands constant motion, constant change, constant activity, trees simply stand and grow, reaching slowly toward the light, deepening their roots into the earth. They remind us that there is wisdom and patience in taking your time, in growing slowly and steadily rather than racing towards some distant finish line. Among all the trees and all the forests of the world, there are some that have been standing for so long that they were ancient before human civilization began. These are the elders of the plant kingdom, witnesses to ages we can barely imagine. And among these ancients, perhaps none are more remarkable than the Bristlecone Pines. High in the mountains of the American West, in places where few other trees can survive, the Bristlecone Pines grow. They cling to rocky slopes at elevations above 10,000 feet, where the air is thin and cold, where the growing season is measured in weeks rather than months, where the soil is poor and the wind is relentless. These are not hospitable places. The conditions are harsh, almost cruel, and yet The bristlecone pines not only survive here, they thrive in their own slow, deliberate way. These trees do not grow quickly. In a good year, a bristlecone pine might add a ring of growth thinner than a human hair. Some years, when the conditions are particularly difficult, they might not grow at all. Their wood is dense, resinous, resistant to decay. Their needles can live for decades on the branch before falling. Everything about them speaks to conservation, to efficiency, to the long view. The oldest known living bristlecone pine, affectionately called Methuselah, is more than 4,800 years old. Think about that for a moment. This tree was already ancient when the pyramids of Egypt were being built. It was old when Buddha sat beneath the Bodhi tree. It had weathered 3,000 winters when Christ walked the earth. It stood through the rise and fall of empires, through ages of human history we know only from fragments and ruins. But even Methuselah is not the oldest bristlecone that has lived. In the same mountains, scientists have found the remains of trees that lived for more than 5,000 years. These trees hold within their rings a record of climate stretching back millennia, each ring a chapter in the story of Earth's changing weather patterns. The exact location of Methuselah is kept secret, protected from those who might harm it, intentionally or not. It stands somewhere in the ancient bristlecone pine forest in California, among others of its kind, indistinguishable to the casual observer from trees that are merely 1,000 or 2,000 years old. The forest keeps its secrets well. What does it mean to live for 5,000 years? It's difficult for us to comprehend. We who measure our lives in decades, who grow anxious about years passing, who feel time always pressing against us. But the bristlecone pines teach us something about time. They teach us that life is not a race, that slow can be strong, that endurance matters more than speed. In the harsh environment where they grow, the bristlecone pines have learned to survive through patience. When conditions are poor, they simply wait. When a drought comes, they slow their growth almost to nothing, conserving every drop of moisture. When the wind howls and the temperature plummets, they stand firm, their wood so dense that it's nearly impervious to rot and disease. When lightning strikes, which it often does on these exposed mountain slopes, the trees might lose a branch or half their crown, but they continue. They adapt. They endure. Many ancient bristlecones are more dead than alive. You might see one with just a single strip of living bark spiraling up the trunk, a ribbon of green life connecting roots to a few living branches, while the rest of the tree is bleached silver by centuries of sun and wind. And yet, that narrow strip is enough. The tree persists, continues, endures. There's a teaching in this, a gentle lesson for those of us who sometimes feel worn down by life. who feel that we've weathered too many storms, that too much of us has been stripped away. The bristlecone pine reminds us that we need only a thread of life, a single connection between our roots and our branches to continue. We need not be perfect or whole or untouched by hardship. We need only to persist. Let yourself rest with that thought. You don't need to be more than you are. You don't need to rush or strive or push. Like the bristlecone pine, you can simply be, simply endure, simply stand in your place and grow at your own pace, in your own time. The bristlecones are not the only ancient trees, of course. Around the world, in forests and sacred groves, other elders stand. In California, the giant sequoias grow, not quite as old as the bristlecones, but far more massive. Trees so large that tunnels have been carved through their trunks. Trees that can weigh more than a blue whale. Trees whose branches are themselves the size of large trees. In Japan, ancient cedars stand in sacred forests, some more than 2,000 years old, their massive trunks wrapped in ceremonial rope, honored as dwelling places of spirits. The Japanese people have long understood that old trees are sacred, that they hold something more than mere wood and bark. They hold presence, wisdom, connection to the deep past. In Europe, there are oak trees that were saplings when the Roman Empire still stood, used that shaded churches built 1,000 years ago, olive trees in the Mediterranean that have been producing fruit since before recorded history began. And then there are the clonal colonies, trees that spread through their root systems, sending up new trunks while the original tree has long since died. In Utah, there is a grove of quaking aspens called pando, which shares a single root system. The grove weighs an estimated 6 million kilograms and may be more than 80,000 years old, making it perhaps the oldest living organism on Earth. What appears to be a forest of individual trees is, in fact, a single living being connected underground, sharing one vast root system, one life force. Imagine that, a single organism that is also a forest. The boundaries we draw between individual and collective, between one and many, begin to blur. The forest teaches us that these boundaries are not as solid as we imagine. Life flows through and between, connecting, merging, separating, reconnecting in an endless dance. As you breathe slowly in and out, imagine roots extending from your body down into the earth, connecting you to something vast and ancient. Imagine that you, too, are part of a larger whole, part of a network of life that extends far beyond your individual body, far beyond this moment. You are connected to everyone who has come before you, everyone who will come after. You are part of the great forest of humanity, and beyond that, part of the living earth itself. The ancient trees stand as a reminder that life is long, that the arc of existence bends slowly, that patience is its own kind of strength. In our fast-paced world, where everything seems urgent and immediate, where we are constantly bombarded with information and demands on our attention, the trees offer a different way of being. They offer slowness, steadiness, presence. When researchers study these ancient trees, they do so with great care and reverence. To take a core sample from a tree like Methuselah is to hold in your hand a timeline stretching back thousands of years. Each ring tells a story of that year's weather, the warmth or cold, the abundance or scarcity of water. The rings are wider in good years, narrower in difficult ones. Some years leave scars, marks of fire or injury. But the tree continues, ring after ring, year after year, century after century. These tree rings have become invaluable to scientists studying ancient climates. They provide a record more accurate than any human documentation, a record written by the earth itself. The trees have witnessed climate patterns we're only now beginning to understand, cycles and variations that stretch across millennia. In their rings, we can read the history of droughts and floods, volcanic eruptions that cooled the earth, solar cycles that warmed it. The trees are archives, libraries, witnesses to deep time. But beyond their scientific value, beyond the data they provide, the ancient trees offer something else, something harder to quantify. They offer perspective. They remind us that our human concerns, our anxieties and ambitions, our daily worries, are small when measured against the vast sweep of time. This is not to diminish our lives or our struggles, but to place them in context, to help us see that we are part of something much larger and longer than our individual existence. There is comfort in this. When we feel overwhelmed, when our problems seem insurmountable, we can think of the bristlecone pine, weathering its 5,000th winter, still standing, still alive, still reaching toward the sun. If a tree can endure 5,000 years on a windswept mountain, perhaps we, too, can endure our difficulties. Perhaps we, too, have more strength than we know. So rest now, and let the image of these ancient trees settle into your mind. See them standing on their lonely peaks, twisted and weathered, beautiful in their endurance. Know that they are there still, standing as they have stood for millennia, as they will stand for centuries more. They are patient. They are strong, and in their own way, they are watching over us, these elders of the earth, these keepers of deep time. Let their patience become your patience. Let their strength become your strength. Let their deep roots remind you of your own connection to the earth, to life, to the long story of existence that includes us all. The forest whispers on, and the ancient trees stand witness, as they always have, as they always will. The forest is beginning to reveal its secrets to you now. You have learned of the hidden networks beneath the soil, the mycorrhizal threads that bind tree to tree in silent conversation. You have stood in imagination beside the ancient ones, the bristlecone pines who have witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Now, let us explore what it means to truly be present in the forest, to receive the gifts it offers to those who enter with open hearts and quiet minds. In Japan, there's a practice called Shinrin-yoku. The words translate simply as forest bathing, though the practice itself is far richer than these simple words suggest. Shinrin-yoku is not about hiking or exercise or reaching a destination. It is about presence. It is about opening your senses to the forest and allowing the forest to work its quiet magic upon you. The practice emerged in Japan in the 1980s. During a time when the country was experiencing rapid technological advancement and urbanization. People were working longer hours, living in increasingly crowded cities, spending more and more time indoors under artificial light. Stress-related illnesses were rising. Something essential was being lost in the rush toward modernity. Japanese researchers began to wonder whether time spent in nature might offer a remedy, a way to restore balance and health. They designed studies, careful scientific investigations into what happens to the human body and mind when we spend time among trees. And what they discovered was remarkable. When people engage in forest bathing, walking slowly through the woods, sitting quietly among the trees, their bodies responded in measurable ways. Blood pressure decreased, cortisol levels, the markers of stress in the body, dropped significantly. Heart rate variability improved, indicating a shift from the sympathetic nervous system, our fight-or-flight response, to the parasympathetic nervous system, our rest and digest state. Immune function strengthened. People reported feeling calmer, more focused, more creative, more alive. The forest, it seemed, was medicine, not metaphorical medicine, but actual, physiological medicine that could be measured and quantified. The trees were healing us simply by being near us, by allowing us to be near them. But how? What was happening in the forest that created these powerful effects? Part of the answer lies in what trees release into the air. Trees produce compounds called phytoncides, natural oils that are part of the tree's defense system against bacteria, insects, and fungi. When we walk through a forest, we breathe in these phytoncides. They enter our lungs, are absorbed into our bloodstream, and they affect us in profound ways. Research has shown that phytoncides increase the activity of natural killer cells in our immune system, the cells that fight infection and disease. A single day spent forest bathing can increase natural killer cell activity by 50%. This boost can last for up to a month. The forest, quite literally, strengthens our body's ability to heal itself and resist illness. But the benefits of forest bathing go beyond the physical. There is something about the quality of attention the forest invites, the way it draws us out of our racing minds and into our senses, that seems to restore something essential in our psychological well-being. In our everyday lives, we are constantly using what researchers call directed attention. We focus on tasks, make decisions, solve problems, filter out distractions. This kind of attention requires effort. It depletes us. After hours of directed attention, we feel mentally fatigued, irritable, unable to concentrate. We've all felt this, the exhaustion that comes not from physical exertion but from mental strain. The forest offers a different kind of attention, what researchers call soft fascination. When we're in nature, our attention is drawn gently to the play of light through leaves, the sound of wind in the branches, the movement of a bird, the scent of pine. These things capture our attention without requiring effort. They allow the directed attention system to rest and recover. This is why a walk in the forest leaves us feeling refreshed rather than depleted. Why time in nature restores our ability to concentrate and think clearly. The forest gives our overtaxed minds permission to rest. In the practice of Shinrin-yoku, you are encouraged to slow down dramatically, to walk at perhaps half your normal pace or slower. You are invited to stop frequently, to sit, to simply be still. The goal is not to cover distance, but to arrive fully in each moment, to be completely present to the forest and to yourself. You might begin by standing at the forest's edge and taking several deep breaths, setting an intention to be open and receptive. Then you enter slowly, pausing to notice what draws your attention. Perhaps it's the texture of bark on a nearby tree. You approach and touch it, feeling the roughness, the grooves and ridges, the patterns that tell the story of the tree's growth. You might close your eyes and simply feel, letting your sense of touch come alive. Or perhaps you're drawn to a particular quality of light, the way the sun filters through the canopy in golden shafts, illuminating particles of pollen and dust in the air. You stop and simply watch this light, the way it moves and shifts as the branches sway in the breeze. You watch without thinking, without analyzing, just receiving the beauty of it. You might lie down on the forest floor, looking up through the canopy at the sky beyond. From this perspective, the trees tower above you, their branches creating intricate patterns against the blue. You become small, held by something vast. There is comfort in this smallness, this sense of being contained within something greater than yourself. The sounds of the forest begin to reveal themselves when you're still and quiet. Layers of sound you didn't notice at first become clear. The rustling of leaves in different registers, from the papery flutter of aspen to the deepest susurrus of oak. The calls of birds, near and far. The buzz of insects. The creak of branches. The drip of water from leaf to leaf after a rain. And beneath it all, silence. A spacious silence that holds all these sounds within it. You might notice scents you overlooked before. The sweet decay of fallen leaves. The sharp, clean smell of sap. The earthy richness of soil and mushrooms. The green scent of growing things. Of photosynthesis itself. That particular fragrance that exists nowhere but in living plants. Each breath brings the forest into your body, makes you part of it. This is forest bathing, not doing, but being, not achieving, but receiving, not conquering nature, but surrendering to it. Allowing it to hold you, heal you, restore you. The practice is spread far beyond Japan now. Forest therapy guides lead groups through woods in America, Europe, Australia, helping people reconnect with the natural world and with themselves. Medical doctors in some countries can now prescribe forest bathing to patients suffering from stress, anxiety, depression, and other ailments. The forest is being recognized for what indigenous peoples have always known. It is a place of healing, a source of wholeness. But you don't need a guide or a prescription to practice forest bathing. You need only a forest, or even a park with trees, and a willingness to slow down, to be present, to open your senses. The trees are always ready to welcome you. They have been waiting, patient as only trees can be, for you to stop and notice them, to receive what they have to offer. As you rest now, imagine that you are practicing forest bathing. You are lying on soft moss beneath an old tree. Above you, the canopy filters the light into a gentle green glow. The air is cool and rich with the scent of the forest. You can hear leaves rustling softly, birds calling in the distance. Your body is completely supported by the earth beneath you. You have nowhere to go, nothing to do. You are simply here, held by the forest, breathing in its healing presence. Feel your nervous system beginning to shift, to settle, to release. The tension you've been carrying in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest begins to soften. Your breath deepens naturally, without effort. Your heartbeat slows to a calm, steady rhythm. The forest is sharing its calm with you, its ancient peace, its deep knowing that all is well, that life continues, that you are safe here. The Japanese have a concept called ma, which roughly translates as the space between things, the pause, the emptiness that gives meaning to fullness. In music, ma is the silence between notes that allows the melody to be heard. In art, it's the empty space that gives form to the painted elements. In life, it's the rest between activities that allows us to truly experience anything. The forest is full of ma, the spaces between trees, the pauses between bird calls, the stillness between gusts of wind. And when we practice Shinrin-yoku, we enter into this ma. We become part of this spaciousness. We stop filling every moment with activity, every silence with noise, every space with clutter. We simply rest in the spaces between, and in doing so, we find ourselves. There's a story of a Western visitor to Japan who, after experiencing forest bathing for the first time, asked the guide, "But what are we supposed to achieve? What's the goal?" The guide smiled and said, "The goal is to have no goal. The achievement is to stop achieving. You are practicing the art of being rather than doing." This is perhaps the greatest gift the forest offers us. In a culture obsessed with productivity, with constant improvement, with measurable outcomes, the forest invites us to simply be. It asks nothing of us. It judges nothing. It welcomes us exactly as we are. And in its presence, we can remember that our worth is not based on what we accomplish or produce. Our worth is inherent, unchangeable, as natural as the worth of the tree that grows, the stream that flows, the stone that rests in the earth. So let yourself rest now in this knowing. You don't need to be anything other than what you are. You don't need to do anything, fix anything, improve anything. You can simply be here, breathing, present, alive. The forest has been practicing this for millions of years. It knows how to simply be, and it can teach you if you let it. Breathe in the forest. Breathe out your worries, your striving, your endless list of things to do. Breathe in peace. Breathe out tension. Breathe in the ancient wisdom of trees. Breathe out everything that no longer serves you. You are forest bathing now, even here, even in this moment. The forest is with you, within you, around you. Its healing presence is available to you always, whenever you pause to remember it, whenever you open your senses in your heart. The trees are whispering still, and their message is simple. You belong here. You are part of this. Rest now and be restored. As you rest here in the gentle embrace of the forest, let us explore another dimension of these remarkable communities of trees. We have spoken of connection, of ancient endurance, of healing presence. Now let us turn our attention to the intelligence of the forest, to the ways trees sense and respond to their world, ways that challenge everything we thought we knew about consciousness and awareness. For a very long time, humans believed that plants were passive, insensate things. They grew, certainly. They responded to light and water, but they were thought to be essentially mechanical, biological automatons following simple chemical instructions encoded in their genes. They had no awareness, no ability to perceive, no capacity to learn or remember or make decisions. They simply existed, green and growing, but fundamentally mindless. We were wrong. Over the past few decades, as scientists have studied plants with increasing sophistication, a new picture has emerged. Plants, and especially trees, are far more aware, far more responsive, far more intelligent than we ever imagined. They don't have brains or nervous systems as we understand them, but they have something else, something equally remarkable, a distributed intelligence that pervades every part of their being. Consider what a tree must know to survive. It must know where the light is coming from and grow toward it. It must know the changing seasons and time its growth accordingly. It must know when to produce leaves and when to let them fall. It must know when it's being attacked by insects or disease and mount appropriate defenses. It must know where water is in the soil and send its roots toward it. It must know its neighbors and adjust its growth to avoid colliding with their branches or stealing too much of their light. A tree must know all these things, and it does know them, though not in the way we know things. A tree's intelligence is woven into its very structure, distributed throughout its body in ways that make our centralized, brain-based consciousness seem almost limiting by comparison. Trees can see, after all, though they have no eyes. They have photoreceptors throughout their tissues that detect not just the presence of light, but its quality, its color, its direction, its intensity. A tree can sense when it's being shaded by a neighboring tree and will adjust its growth accordingly, perhaps growing more rapidly upward to reach the light, or sending branches out to the side where the canopy is more open. Even more remarkably, trees can tell the difference between the shade cast by an inanimate object, like a building, and the shade cast by another tree. How? By analyzing the quality of the light. When light passes through leaves, certain wavelengths are absorbed while others pass through. A tree can detect these subtle differences in the light spectrum and respond appropriately. Shade from another tree signals competition, prompting one kind of growth response. Shade from a rock or building prompts another. Trees can also distinguish between different colors of light, and they use this ability to sense the changing seasons. The ratio of red to far red light shifts as the days lengthen and shorten. Trees detect these shifts and use them as signals to begin or end their growing season. to produce flowers, to set seed, to prepare for winter's dormancy. So yes, trees can see in their own way, but they can also smell and taste. When a tree is attacked by caterpillars, it can detect chemicals in the caterpillar's saliva. Different species of caterpillars produce different chemicals, and the tree can identify which species is feeding on it. The tree then produces defensive compounds specifically tailored to that particular pest. It's as if the tree can taste the difference between one attacker and another and responds with precision. Trees also release volatile compounds into the air when they are attacked, chemical distress signals that warn neighboring trees of danger. These neighboring trees, receiving the warning, begin producing defensive compounds before they themselves are attacked. The forest, once again, is communicating, protecting itself through a shared language of scent. Trees can hear as well, or at least they can sense vibrations. Researchers have discovered that trees respond to the sound of running water, sending their roots toward the source of the sound even before the roots encounter the moisture itself. The trees are listening, in their way, for the sound of water and following it through the soil. More intriguingly, some studies suggest that plants can detect the vibrations of insects chewing on their leaves and distinguish these vibrations from other sounds like wind. When plants hear the sound of chewing, they increase their production of defensive chemicals. The forest is listening to itself being eaten and responding accordingly. Trees also have a sense of touch. When branches brush against each other repeatedly in the wind, trees will adjust their growth to avoid the contact, a phenomenon called crown shyness. If you look up in certain forests, you can see this clearly. The upper branches of neighboring trees maintain a small gap between them, creating a puzzle-like pattern of space that allows each tree its own sphere without collision. The trees are being polite, in their way, respecting each other's space. Even more remarkable is what happens when you wound a tree. If you cut into the bark, the tree not only heals the wound but remembers it. Years later, that spot will have reinforced tissues, extra defenses, as if the tree carries the memory of past injury in its very structure. Trees remember. Scientists have also discovered that trees can count. When certain species are attacked by caterpillars, they don't respond immediately. Instead, they wait. They count how many times they've been bitten. After 5 or 6 bites, the tree finally releases its defensive chemicals. Why wait? Researchers believe the tree is making sure the attack is serious before investing energy in defense. A few random bites might not warrant a full response, but sustained attack does. The tree is making a decision, weighing costs and benefits, responding intelligently rather than reflexively. Trees also show something that looks remarkably like learning. Young trees growing near their parents connected through mycorrhizal networks, grow differently than trees without such connections. They seem to receive not just nutrients but information through the networks, learning from their elders where to send roots, when to produce defensive compounds, how to respond to various challenges. The mother trees we spoke of earlier are not just feeding their young but teaching them, passing on accumulated wisdom through underground networks. Let yourself rest with this thought. Intelligence does not require a brain. Awareness does not require a nervous system like ours. The forest is thinking in its own way, sensing in its own way, remembering and learning and communicating in ways we're only beginning to understand. The trees are conscious, though their consciousness is so different from ours that we've only recently recognized it for what it is. This raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If a tree can sense and respond, remember and learn, communicate and make decisions, what is it experiencing? Does a tree have some form of subjective experience, some sense of being a tree? We cannot know for certain. We cannot climb inside a tree's awareness any more than we can fully know what it's like to be another human. But the evidence suggests that trees are not mere objects, not simple mechanisms. They are subjects, beings with their own kind of interiority, their own way of being in the world. Some scientists speak of plant neurobiology, a controversial term because plants have no neurons. But the processes by which plants transmit information, make decisions, and coordinate responses bear remarkable similarities to the processes in animal nervous systems. Plants use electrical signals, chemical signals, hydraulic signals, creating networks of communication within their bodies and between bodies through the soil. The forest thinks collectively, each tree contributing to a distributed intelligence that spans the entire ecosystem. Indigenous peoples have known this all along, of course. Long before Western science discovered mycorrhizal networks and plant intelligence, indigenous cultures spoke of trees as people, as beings with awareness and agency, as relatives deserving of respect. They spoke of the forest as alive, not just in the biological sense, but in a deeper sense, as having presence, awareness, spirit. Western science is only now catching up to what was never forgotten by those who maintained close relationships with the land. There's a humility required in recognizing plant intelligence. It asks us to decenter ourselves, to recognize that our kind of consciousness, our brain-based, centralized awareness, is not the only way to be conscious. It asks us to expand our circle of moral consideration, to recognize that the living world is far more awake, far more aware, far more deserving of respect than we imagined. When you walk through a forest now, knowing what you know, everything changes. You are not walking through a collection of objects, but through a community of aware beings. The trees sense your presence, though they experience it differently than you experience theirs. You are part of their environment, as they are part of yours. You are in relationship, whether you recognize it or not. This is why the practice of forest bathing feels so profound. On some level, perhaps below conscious thought, you sense that you are being sensed. The forest is aware of you, not judgmentally, not analytically, but simply, completely. You are held in the forest's vast awareness, and some part of you recognizes this and relaxes into it. Rest here with this knowing. You are in the presence of other minds, other forms of consciousness, ancient and patient and wise in their own way. The trees around you, in your imagination or in reality, are aware. They are sensing the world, responding to it, making their slow, careful decisions about how to grow, how to defend themselves, how to share resources with their neighbors. They are alive not just biologically but experientially. They are here with you, present in this moment, fellow travelers on this living earth. And perhaps, in some way we don't fully understand, through mechanisms that science has not yet discovered, the trees are aware of your presence right now, aware of your attention, your respect, your wonder. Perhaps when we truly see the forest sees us in return. Perhaps consciousness calls to consciousness across the boundaries of species, across the vast differences in form and function, recognizing itself in the other. Let this thought settle into you gently. You are not alone in your awareness. You are surrounded by other forms of consciousness, other ways of knowing and being. The world is far more alive than you were taught. Every forest is thinking. Every tree is sensing. The green world is awake, and it has been awake all along, waiting patiently for us to notice, waiting for us to remember that we, too, are part of this vast community of aware, responsive, intelligent life. Breathe in this knowledge. Let it expand your sense of the world, your sense of belonging. You are part of a conscious universe, a living earth where awareness takes countless forms, where intelligence blooms in bark and leaf as surely as it does in brain and bone. The forest whispers its secrets still, and now you understand a little more of what it's saying. I am here. I am aware. I am alive in ways you're only beginning to comprehend. And you, dear listener, are welcome here, always welcome, recognized and held in the vast, patient awareness of the trees. We have traveled deep into the forest now, you and I. We have learned its secret language, stood beside its most ancient members, bathed in its healing presence, and marveled at its quiet intelligence. Now, As our journey continues, let us explore the cycles of the forest, the rhythms of growth and decay, of life and death and rebirth that tane endlessly beneath the canopy. The forest is never still, though its changes happen so slowly that we rarely notice them. A tree grows, but so gradually that you could visit the same tree every day for a year and never perceive the difference. And yet, the tree is always growing, always changing, always responding to the conditions around it. The forest exists in what one might call deep time, where change is measured not in moments or hours, but in seasons and years and centuries. There is something profoundly calming about this pace. In our human world, everything moves so quickly. Information travels at the speed of light. Trends rise and fall in weeks. We are expected to respond instantly, to adapt immediately, to keep up with a pace that often feels impossible. But the forest reminds us that there is another way to exist in time, a slower, more sustainable rhythm. Consider the cycle of a single year in the forest. In winter, particularly in temperate and boreal forests, everything appears dormant. The deciduous trees stand bare, their branches dark against the snow. The forest seems asleep, almost lifeless. But appearances deceive. Beneath the bark, in the roots below the frozen soil, life persists. The trees are resting, yes, but they are also waiting, measuring the days, sensing the subtle shifts in light and temperature that signal the turning of the seasons. Inside each bud on each bare branch is a perfectly formed leaf or flower, miniature and tightly folded, waiting. The tree created these buds months ago, in the previous summer, planning ahead for the spring that was still half a year away. Trees are patient planners, always thinking ahead, always preparing for what comes next. As winter slowly releases its grip and the days begin to lengthen, the trees sense the change. They measure the accumulated hours of sunlight, the warming soil, the thawing moisture. And when the time is right, when all the signals align, they begin to wake. Sap rises through the trunk, carrying stored sugars from the roots to the branches. The buds swell, and then, in what seems like a sudden explosion but is actually the culmination of months of preparation, the forest comes alive with green. Spring in the forest is a cascade of awakening. The earliest bloomers, often small wildflowers called spring ephemerals, carpet the forest floor before the trees fully leaf out. These delicate plants have a narrow window of opportunity. They must emerge, photosynthesize, bloom, be pollinated, set seed, and store energy for next year, all before the canopy closes above them and shades the forest floor. They live fast in this brief window of light. then die back and wait underground for next spring's opportunity. Then the trees themselves unfurl their leaves. The process happens with remarkable speed, a green wave that moves through the forest as different species leaf out in their own time. Some, like aspens and birches, leaf early, while others, like oaks, wait until the danger of late frost has passed. Each species has its own strategy, its own timing, perfected over millennia of evolution. With the leaves comes an explosion of life. Insects emerge to feed on the fresh, tender foliage. Birds return from their winter migrations, filling the forest with song, feeding on the insects, building nests in the branches. Mammals give birth to their young, timing the arrival of new life to coincide with the abundance of spring. The forest buzzes and hums and rustles with activity. Everything is eating or being eaten, growing or reproducing, engage in the urgent business of life. Summer brings a different energy. The frantic pace of spring settles into something steadier. The trees have leafed out fully, creating a dense canopy that captures sunlight and converts it into sugars through the miraculous process of photosynthesis. The forest is a green factory, producing the energy that will sustain the entire ecosystem. In the cool shade beneath the canopy, ferns unfurl, mushrooms push up through the leaf litter, and mosses carpet the rocks and fallen logs. This is the time of growth and plenty. The trees add new rings to their trunks. Fruits ripen, seeds develop. The forest is building, storing energy, preparing once again for the seasons to come. Everything seems abundant, lush, eternal. But the trees know better. They are already sensing the subtle shortening of days, the slight shift in the angle of sunlight. They know what's coming. And then comes autumn, perhaps the most visibly dramatic season in the forest. The leaves, which have been green all summer, begin to change. But this change is not a sudden die. It's a carefully orchestrated process of withdrawal and preservation. The trees are breaking down the chlorophyll in their leaves, the green pigment that captures sunlight, and reabsorbing the valuable nutrients before the leaves fall. As the chlorophyll breaks down, other pigments that were there all along, hidden beneath the green, are revealed. Yellow carotenoids, orange xanthophylls, red and purple anthocyanins. The forest becomes a tapestry of color, a final brilliant display before the quiet of winter. This is not waste or loss, though it might seem so. The trees are making a calculated decision. In winter, when water freezes and becomes unavailable, leaves would be a liability, losing precious moisture through evaporation while providing no benefit since there's too little light for photosynthesis. So the trees let them go, dropping them to the forest floor where they will become part of the soil, feeding the mycorrhizal networks, enriching the earth, contributing to the endless cycle of nutrient exchange. As the leaves fall and winter returns, the forest enters its time of rest. The cycle completes and begins again. Year after year, century after century, this rhythm continues. Birth and growth, abundance and harvest, release and rest. The forest knows these rhythms in its very being. It doesn't resist them or wish for endless summer. It accepts each season as it comes, does what needs to be done, and waits patiently for the wheel to turn again. There is wisdom here for us. We, too, live in cycles, though we often try to deny them. We want constant productivity, endless growth, perpetual summer. But our bodies and minds know better. We need seasons of activity and seasons of rest, times of outward expansion and times of inward consolidation. We need to let some things go, to shed what no longer serves us, to rest and restore ourselves so we can bloom again when the time is right. The forest teaches us not to fear the fallow times, the periods when nothing seems to be happening. Beneath the surface, in those quiet times, essential work is being done. Roots are deepening, energy is being stored, preparation is being made for the next season of growth. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. Everything is part of the cycle. But there is another cycle we must consider, one that takes not months but decades or centuries to complete. This is the cycle of the forest itself, the process of succession and renewal that transforms ecosystems over vast stretches of time. When a forest is disturbed by fire or storm or disease, by logging or some other catastrophe that clears the land, what happens next is a slow dance of renewal. The first plants to colonize the background are not forest trees but pioneers, fast-growing species like grasses, shrubs, and small trees like aspens and alders. These pioneers can tolerate the harsh conditions of open land, the intense sun, the drying winds, the temperature extremes. They grow quickly, produce abundant seeds, and spread rapidly. As these pioneers grow, they begin to change the environment. Their roots stabilize the soil. Their leaves shade the ground, reducing temperature extremes and moisture loss. When they die, they add organic matter to the soil, enriching it. They create conditions where other species, less hardy but ultimately more dominant, can establish themselves. Gradually, shade-tolerant species begin to appear. Young maples, oaks, beeches, hemlocks start growing beneath the pioneer canopy. They grow slowly at first, in the shade of their predecessors, but they are patient. They can wait, and eventually, as the pioneers age and die, as their shorter lifespans run their course, the shade-tolerant species are there, ready to take their place. This process continues, each generation of trees preparing the way for the next, until eventually, perhaps after several hundred years, the forest reaches what ecologists call a climax state, a relatively stable community of long-lived, shade-tolerant trees. This is the old-growth forest, the mature forest, the forest in its fullest expression. But even this is not permanent. Eventually, disturbance will come again. A fire will sweep through, or a massive storm will topple the giants, or disease will thin the canopy, and the cycle will begin again. Pioneers colonizing the disturbed ground, preparing the way for what comes next. The forest is always dying and always being reborn. It is a phoenix that eternally rises from its own ashes. And even in the absence of catastrophic disturbance, change continues at the smallest scale. Individual trees die, creating gaps in the canopy that allow light to reach the forest floor. Young trees compete for these gaps, racing toward the light, and eventually, one or several will claim the space left by the fallen giant. The forest is a mosaic of different ages, different stages of growth, all coexisting in a complex, ever-shifting pattern. Death in the forest is not an ending but a transformation. When a tree falls, it doesn't disappear. It becomes a nose log, a horizontal garden where new life takes root. Mosses colonize the bark. Ferns sprout from the decaying wood. Tree seedlings send their roots down into the decomposing trunk, drawing nutrients from what the tree once was. Animals make homes in the hollow spaces. Fungi break down the cellulose and lignin, releasing nutrients back into the soil. The tree feeds the forest for decades after its death, giving back everything it took during its life. This is perhaps the most important lesson the forest has to teach us. Nothing is ever truly lost. Everything transforms. Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it, an essential phase in the endless cycle of renewal. The forest does not mourn its fallen members, but celebrates them, transforms them, incorporates them back into the living community. Everything returns. Everything continues in a new form. Let yourself rest in this knowing. You, too, are part of these cycles. You, too, have seasons of growth and seasons of rest, times of abundance and times of letting go. You, too, will eventually return to the earth, and your substance will feed new life, will become part of the endless dance of transformation. There is no tragedy in this, no loss that is not also a gift. You are part of the forest's great cycle, connected to everything that has ever lived and everything that will ever live. Breathe slowly, deeply. Feel the rhythm of your breath, in and out. A small cycle within the larger cycles of day and night, of seasons and years. of birth and death and rebirth. You are breathing with the forest, matching its ancient rhythm, becoming part of its eternal dance. The wheel turns, the seasons change. Life gives way to death, gives way to new life. And through it all, the forest endures, not by resisting change, but by embracing it, by flowing with the cycles, by trusting that everything that falls will rise again in a new form. You are safe in this cycle. You are held by it. You don't need to cling or control or resist. You can let go. Let the seasons turn. Trust that rest will give way to growth, that winter will always yield to spring. The forest has been doing this for millions of years. It knows the way, and you, dear listener, you know the way too, deep in your bones, in the ancient wisdom your body carries. You know how to rest. You know how to grow. You know how to let go when the time comes. The forest whispers its eternal truth. Everything changes, and everything continues. Everything dies, and everything lives again. There is nothing to fear in the turning of the wheel. There is only the dance, the endless, beautiful dance of transformation. Rest now in this cycle. Let it hold you. Let it carry you gently into sleep, into dreams, into the quiet darkness where new growth begins. And so we arrive at the deepest part of the forest, the quietest hour, where the path grows dim and the trees lean close like old friends gathering to share their final secrets. You have traveled far with me tonight, through networks invisible and time immeasurable, through healing presence and quiet intelligence, through the turning wheel of seasons and the endless cycle of renewal. Now, as our journey draws toward its gentle close, let us rest here together in the heart of the forest and listen to what it has to say about belonging, about home, about the deep connection that binds all living things. There is a feeling that comes over you sometimes in the forest, a feeling that's difficult to name. It's not quite peace, though peace is part of it. It's not quite joy, though there is joy in it. It's something older, something that reaches back to the very beginning of what it means to be human. It's the feeling of coming home to a place you've never been, of remembering something you never knew you'd forgotten. It's the feeling of belonging. We are forest creatures, we humans. Our ancestors lived in trees, swinging through branches, finding safety in the canopy. When we came down from the trees and began to walk upright, we didn't leave the forest behind. We remained forest dwellers for millions of years, finding food and shelter and community among the trees. The forest shaped us, molded us, made us what we are. Our eyes, which see color so well, evolved to spot ripe fruit among green leaves. Our hands, so skilled at grasping, were made for holding branches. Our social nature, our tendency to live in communities and care for one another, was honed in the forest where cooperation meant survival. Even when we left the forest to inhabit grasslands and eventually to build cities, we carried the forest within us. We plant trees around our homes. We fill our cities with parks. We hang pictures of forests on our walls. We speak of family trees, of putting down roots, of branching out, of turning over a new leaf. The forest lives in our language, in our dreams, in the deep places of our psyche where metaphor and memory intertwine. When you enter a forest, something ancient in you awakens. Your nervous system recognizes this place. This is where you came from. This is home in a way that transcends any individual lifetime. Home in the genetic sense, the evolutionary sense. Your body knows the forest, and the forest knows you. You are not a stranger here. You are a returning child. Welcome back into the fold. And the forest does welcome you. It has been here all along, waiting with infinite patience. Trees do not hurry. They cannot hurry. They stand in their place and grow slowly, and they are content with this. They teach us that there is no need to rush, no need to strive constantly, no need to be anywhere other than where we are. Presence is enough. Being is enough. You are enough. In the forest, there is no judgment. The trees do not care if you are successful or unsuccessful by society's measures. They do not care if you are young or old, beautiful or plain, wealthy or poor. They offer their shade, their oxygen, their presence to all equally. They remind us of our intrinsic worth, the worth that exists simply because we exist, because we are alive, because we are part of this great community of being. There is a quality to forest light that exists nowhere else. It's been filtered through countless leaves, each one capturing some wavelengths and letting others pass through. By the time it reaches you, standing on the forest floor, the light is soft, diffuse, green-tinged, gentle. It's the quality of light that suggests safety, enclosure, being held. In this light, harsh edges soften. Everything takes on a dreamlike quality, as if you've stepped slightly sideways from ordinary reality into some more primal, more essential world. And perhaps you have. Perhaps the forest is more real than the artificial environments we've constructed, with their straight lines and harsh lights and constant noise. Perhaps the forest shows us what reality looks like when it's allowed to organize itself, when it follows its own deep patterns rather than human designs. And these patterns, these organic rhythms and relationships, feel right to us in a way that nothing human-made quite can, because we evolved to recognize them, to feel safe and comfortable within them. Listen now to the silence of the forest. It's not an empty silence, but a full one, a pregnant silence, alive with possibility. It's the silence of snow falling on pine boughs, the silence of moss growing on stone, the silence of roots reaching deeper into the earth. It's a silence that holds sound within it, that makes space for the small music of the forest, the drip of water, the rustle of a small creature in the undergrowth, the distant call of an owl. This silence invites your own silence. It invites you to stop the constant chatter of your mind, the endless planning and worrying and rehearsing and remembering. It invites you to simply be quiet, to rest in wordless awareness, to experience the world directly rather than through the filter of thought and language. In this silence, you can hear what the forest has been trying to tell you all along. It's saying, slow down. It's saying, you are part of this. It's saying, everything you need is here, has always been here, will always be here. It's saying, rest now, dear one. Rest and be restored. The forest is a place of refuge, and it always has been. Throughout history, people have fled to the forests in times of trouble. The forests have hidden refugees, sheltered rebels, protected those who needed protection. The forests have been sanctuaries, places where different rules apply, where the pressures and demands of human society lose their power. In the forest, you can remember who you are beneath all the roles you play, all the expectations placed upon you. You can shed your social self like a snake sheds its skin and rest in your essential nature. And what is that essential nature? The forest shows you. You are a living being, connected to all other living beings through invisible threads of relationship and interdependence. You are both individual and part of a whole, like a tree in a forest, distinct yet inseparable from the community that sustains you. You are temporary and eternal. Your individual life a brief flicker in the long story of life on Earth. Yet your substance, your atoms, your energy, part of something that has no beginning and no end. You are made of the same elements as the trees, the same carbon and oxygen and hydrogen, nitrogen and phosphorus and all the trace minerals that make up living things. You drink the water the trees have released. You breathe the oxygen they have created. You eat food that grew in soil enriched by their fallen leaves. You are not separate from the forest. You are an expression of it, a different form of the same underlying life force that flows through everything. When you understand this, truly understand it in your body and not just your mind, something shifts. The loneliness that haunts so much of modern life begins to dissolve. You realize you are never truly alone, that you are always held within a vast web of relationships, supported by the living earth, connected to everything that breathes and grows. You are a thread in an infinite tapestry, and your presence matters. Your existence makes a difference, not because of what you do, but simply because you are. The trees know this. They live this truth every moment of their long lives. They are content to be exactly what they are, to fulfill their nature without questioning or resisting it. An oak tree doesn't wish it were a pine. A birch doesn't envy the maple. Each tree expresses its own unique nature fully, and in doing so, contributes to the health and beauty of the whole forest. You, too, have your own nature, your own way of being that is yours alone. The forest invites you to discover it, to honor it, to express it without apology or hesitation. You don't need to be anyone other than who you are. You don't need to become something else, something better, something more. Like the trees, you are already complete, already perfect in your own way, already an essential part of the whole. As you rest here in the deepest part of the forest, in this quiet hour, allow yourself to feel your rootedness. Feel how you are connected through the ground beneath you, through the air you breathe, through the water in your body, to everything around you. Feel how you are held, always held, by the living earth. Feel how you belong here, how you have always belonged, how you could never not belong because you are made of this place. You are an expression of this place. You are this place knowing itself. The forest has been whispering to you throughout this journey, and perhaps now you can hear clearly what it's been saying. It's been saying, welcome home. It's been saying, you are loved, not for what you do, but for what you are. It's been saying, rest in me, and I will restore you. It's been saying, you are part of something vast and ancient and beautiful, something that will continue long after your individual life has ended. Something that gives your life meaning and context and connection. The forest will be here tomorrow and the day after and 1,000 years from now. The trees will keep growing, keep reaching toward the light, keep sharing resources through their underground networks. The seasons will keep turning. The cycles of birth and death and rebirth will continue. The mycorrhizal threads will keep weaving their invisible connections. The mother trees will keep nurturing their young. The ancient bristlecones will keep standing on their lonely peaks, bearing witness to the passage of time. And all of it, all of this living, breathing, thinking forest will be here, waiting to welcome you back whenever you need to return. And you can return anytime you wish, even when you're far from any physical forest. You can close your eyes and come back to this place in your mind and heart. You can remember the green light, the soft silence, the feeling of being held. You can breathe in the peace of the forest and breathe out your worries and fears. You can reconnect with that sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than yourself, of being home. The forest lives in you now. You carry it within you. The wisdom of the trees, their patience and resilience and generosity is available to you always. When life feels overwhelming, remember the bristlecone pine, enduring for millennia. When you feel alone, remember the mycorrhizal networks, the invisible connections that bind all things together. When you need healing, remember Shinrin-yoku, the practice of opening your senses and letting the forest restore you. When you forget your own intelligence and capability, remember that trees can sense and respond and learn without a brain, that intelligence takes many forms, that you have resources you haven't even recognized yet. And when you need rest, come back here. Come back to this quiet place, this deep forest, this sanctuary of green and growing things. The trees will be here, standing in their patient way, offering their shade and their silence and their acceptance. You are always welcome here. You always belong here. This is your home, and it always has been. So rest now, deeply and completely. Let the forest hold you. Let it support you. Let it remind you of who you really are beneath all the noise and complexity of modern life. You are a child of the forest, a child of the earth, a living being connected to all other living beings. You are loved. You are held. You are home. The whispering woods have shared their secrets with you tonight. They have shown you the hidden networks that connect all things. The ancient trees that witness the passage of ages. The healing presence that restores body and mind. The quiet intelligence that pervades all living things. The cycles of growth and decay and renewal that tang endlessly. And finally, this deep truth of belonging, of being part of something vast and beautiful and eternal. May you carry these secrets with you. May they comfort you in difficult times and sustain you through all the seasons of your life. May you remember always that you are not alone, that you are connected, that you belong to the forest and the forest belongs to you. Sleep now. Dear traveler, sleep deeply and peacefully, held in the arms of the ancient trees, surrounded by their quiet wisdom, wrapped in their patient love. The forest watches over you. The forest keeps you safe. The forest whispers, all is well. All is well. All is well. And in the morning, when you wake, may you rise renewed, restored, remembering what the forest has taught you, carrying its peace within you, ready to face whatever comes with the strength and patience and grace of the trees themselves. The whispering woods bid you good night. Sleep well and dream of forests.